Some people dislike you, and you've never done a single thing to them. No argument, no betrayal, no reason. Yet every time you walk into the room, the energy shifts. Their tone changes. Their attitude hardens. The truth is, when someone hates you for no reason, it's rarely about you. It's about what you represent to them. And if you watch closely, they always reveal themselves through a few predictable behaviors. If you've ever noticed someone doing this around you, pay attention. And if you're finding this breakdown helpful, make sure to subscribe and stay with me, because the next behaviors are even more revealing. Someone who secretly dislikes you rarely attacks you directly at first. Instead, they slowly shrink the value of anything good that happens in your life. The moment you achieve something, their response sounds polite on the surface, but carries a quiet dismissal underneath. You might share good news about a promotion, a project you completed, or a personal goal you reached, and instead of genuine excitement, they respond with something like, "Well, you were in the right place at the right time," or "Anyone could have done that with the opportunity you had." What they are doing is taking the credit away from your effort and placing it on luck, circumstance, or timing. This behavior comes from a quiet sense of comparison that exists in their mind. Your progress reminds them of something they feel they are missing in their own life. Instead of admitting that discomfort or working on themselves, they protect their ego by lowering the value of what you achieved. If they can convince themselves that your success is not impressive, then they do not have to feel threatened by it. You will often notice this pattern repeating. When other people praise you, they become quiet or slightly uncomfortable. If someone says you did a great job, the person who secretly dislikes you might quickly add a comment like, "Yeah, but it was a small project," or "Let's see if it works long term." They are not openly attacking you, but they are carefully inserting doubt into the conversation. Another detail that reveals this behavior is consistency. It happens almost every time something positive happens for you. They rarely show excitement, rarely ask deeper questions about how you did it, and rarely celebrate the moment with you. Their energy feels flat or dismissive. Over time, this pattern can make people second-guess themselves. If you hear minimizing comments often enough, you may start wondering if your achievements really are small. But the truth is, people who respect you tend to amplify your effort, not reduce it. When someone repeatedly downplays your wins, it usually says more about their internal insecurity than it does about your actual success. Another common behavior is that they spread subtle negativity about you to other people. They rarely confront you directly because direct confrontation requires confidence and clarity. Instead, they operate through small comments, quiet suggestions, and carefully planted doubts in conversations when you are not around. It often begins with something that sounds harmless. They might say things like, "I'm not sure, but something about them feels off," or "They seem nice, but I wonder what they're really like behind the scenes." These statements are not accusations. They are suggestions. And suggestions are powerful because they place a question in someone's mind without the speaker taking full responsibility for it. What makes this behavior difficult to detect is how casual it appears. They might deliver these comments while smiling, laughing, or pretending they are simply sharing an observation. To others, it may even sound like concern rather than criticism. But the intention underneath is to slowly influence how people see you. People who secretly resent you often do this because they feel threatened by your presence or your reputation. If others respect you, trust you, or admire you, that attention can feel uncomfortable for someone who quietly competes with you. Instead of improving themselves, they try to balance the scale by lowering how others perceive you. Over time, these small comments accumulate. One remark might not change anything, but repeated suggestions can shape how people think. A person might start questioning your motives, your personality, or your intentions without even realizing where the idea came from. You may notice strange signs when this is happening. Someone might suddenly act distant toward you, even though you have never had a problem with them before. Conversations may feel slightly colder. Sometimes you sense tension without understanding the source. In many cases, Subtle negativity planted behind the scenes is the reason. This behavior also allows the person to protect their image. Because they never openly attack you, they can always deny their intentions. If confronted, they can say they were misunderstood or that they were simply expressing concern. The subtlety is what makes the behavior effective, but it is also what reveals the quiet resentment driving it. Another behavior you will notice is the strange way they react when something good happens in your life. Success has a way of revealing people's true emotions. When someone genuinely respects you, your progress feels inspiring to them. They smile, they congratulate you, and sometimes they even ask how you did it because they want to learn. But when someone secretly dislikes you, your success creates discomfort they struggle to hide. The first thing you may notice is the delay in their reaction. You share good news, and there is a pause. It might only last a second or two, but it feels slightly off. Then the response comes, but it sounds forced. They say, "That's great," or "Good for you," yet the tone carries very little energy behind it. The words are supportive, but the emotion doesn't match. Sometimes the reaction becomes competitive instead of supportive. The moment you mention your achievement, they quickly bring up something about themselves. You say you finished an important project, and suddenly they start talking about a bigger project they handled before. You mention reaching a personal milestone, and they shift the conversation toward their own experience. The focus quietly moves away from your moment and back onto them. There are also times when they react with subtle skepticism. Instead of celebrating, they start asking questions that feel more like interrogation than curiosity. They might say things like, "Are you sure that's going to work?" Or, "Let's see if it lasts." The intention behind these questions is not understanding but doubt. By introducing uncertainty, they reduce the emotional impact of your success. Body language often reveals even more. Their smile may look tight or brief. Eye contact might disappear quickly. They might change the topic faster than expected, almost as if staying on your achievement for too long makes them uncomfortable. What makes this behavior revealing is the consistency. Every time something positive happens for you, the reaction follows a similar pattern: forced acknowledgement, subtle comparison, or quiet doubt. It shows that your progress is not just news to them. It is something that challenges how they see themselves, and that internal discomfort quietly shapes the way they respond to you. Another behavior you will often notice is that they constantly search for small mistakes to criticize. When someone secretly dislikes you, they pay very close attention to what you do, but not because they admire you. They watch carefully because they are waiting for something they can point out, something that allows them to question your competence or character. At first, it may seem like normal feedback. Everyone makes corrections sometimes, and healthy criticism can be useful. But the difference here is the intention and the frequency. With someone who quietly resents you, the focus is rarely on what you did well. Their attention immediately locks onto the one small thing that was imperfect. You might complete an entire task successfully, yet the only thing they mention is a tiny detail that could have been done differently. You might present an idea that works, and instead of acknowledging the overall value, they highlight a minor flaw. Over time, this creates a pattern where your strengths are ignored while your smallest missteps are magnified. What makes this behavior revealing is the imbalance. When others make similar mistakes, they remain silent or forgiving. But when you do something slightly wrong, the reaction is immediate. They might correct you in front of others, question your decisions, or bring attention to something most people would not even notice. There is also a certain tone that accompanies this behavior. The criticism often carries a hint of satisfaction, even if it is subtle. It may come in the form of sarcasm, a quick remark, or a comment that sounds like advice but feels more like an attempt to undermine you. The goal is not improvement. The goal is to shift the spotlight away from your strengths and toward your imperfections. Over time, this can make interactions with them feel tense. You may notice yourself being unusually careful around them, double-checking your work, or feeling as though you are constantly being evaluated. That feeling does not come from nowhere. It comes from repeated experiences where small mistakes are treated as proof that you are less capable than people believe. This pattern reveals something important about their mindset. When someone respects you, they see the bigger picture of your efforts and your growth. But when someone secretly dislikes you, they reduce your entire performance to the smallest flaw they can find, because highlighting that flaw helps them feel a little more comfortable with their own insecurities. Another behavior you may notice is the way they give backhanded compliments. On the surface, it sounds like praise. The words appear positive, and if someone heard it quickly, they might even think the person is being supportive. But hidden inside the compliment is a small insult, a subtle comparison, or a quiet attempt to lower your confidence. It might sound like someone saying, "You actually did a really good job on that," or "You're smarter than I expected." At first, the sentence feels like encouragement, but the second part reveals the real message. The praise comes with an implication that they previously believed you were less capable. Instead of celebrating your ability, they attach surprise or doubt to it. Sometimes the backhanded compliment appears in comparisons. They might say something like, "You're doing pretty well for someone your age," or "Your presentation was good. Not perfect, but good." The first part lifts you up just enough to make the second part feel heavier. It creates a strange emotional moment where you are unsure whether you were just praised or quietly criticized. This behavior is often used because it allows the person to maintain a friendly appearance while still expressing their resentment. If you react negatively, they can quickly defend themselves by saying they were only trying to compliment you. The structure of the comment protects them from accountability because technically they said something positive. Over time, repeated backhanded compliments can create subtle confusion. You might walk away from the conversation wondering why the interaction felt uncomfortable, even though the words sounded supportive. That uneasy feeling comes from the contradiction between the tone and the hidden message. Another detail that reveals this pattern is the timing. These comments often appear right after something positive happens for you. When others are praising you or acknowledging your success, the person who secretly dislikes you inserts a comment that slightly reduces the moment. It does not completely destroy the praise, but it introduces just enough doubt to weaken the impact. What this behavior really shows is a struggle between appearance and emotion. They want to appear polite and supportive in front of others, but their resentment still finds a way to slip into the conversation. The compliment becomes a disguise, and inside that disguise sits a quiet attempt to make your success feel a little smaller than it actually is. Another behavior that often reveals hidden dislike is quiet exclusion. Instead of openly rejecting you, they slowly leave you out of conversations, decisions, or opportunities where your presence would normally make sense. It rarely looks dramatic. In fact, it often appears so subtle that at first, you may not even question it. You might notice that certain discussions happen without you, even though the topic directly involves something you are part of. Plans are made, ideas are exchanged, and later you hear about it from someone else. When you ask about it, the explanation usually sounds casual. They forgot to mention it, they thought you were busy, or it simply slipped their mind. But when the pattern repeats, it becomes clear that forgetting is not really the issue. This type of exclusion can also happen socially. In group settings, they may talk with everyone around you but rarely bring you into the conversation. When a topic appears that relates to your experience or knowledge, they might quickly move past it instead of inviting your input. The interaction feels slightly closed, as if there is an invisible barrier between you and the group. Another sign appears when opportunities are involved. Information about useful events, meetings, or chances to participate in something meaningful may circulate among others while somehow missing you. Later, when the opportunity has already passed, you discover that everyone else seemed to know about it. Again, the explanation is usually light and dismissive, as if it were simply a small oversight. What makes this behavior powerful is that it operates quietly. Because nothing is said directly, it becomes difficult to confront. If you question it, the person can easily deny any intention and frame the situation as a misunderstanding. Yet the repeated pattern slowly shapes how others interact with you by limiting how often you are included in shared spaces or discussions. Over time, this behavior can create distance without a single open conflict. The person does not need to argue with you or criticize you directly. By quietly reducing your presence in conversations and opportunities, they attempt to shrink your influence and visibility, hoping that others will slowly interact with you less simply because you are no longer consistently part of the circle where things happen. Another behavior you may notice is that they constantly assume the worst about your intentions. Instead of giving you the benefit of the doubt, they interpret your actions through a negative lens, as if they are always expecting you to have a hidden motive. Even normal decisions or harmless comments can be twisted into something suspicious in their mind. For example, if you offer help on a project, they might respond with subtle skepticism, suggesting you are trying to take credit or make yourself look better. If you share an idea during a discussion, they may act as though you are trying to control the situation or outshine others. The action itself may be positive or neutral, but their interpretation immediately moves toward doubt. What makes this behavior noticeable is the pattern behind it. Most people evaluate situations based on context. If someone has a good track record, they assume positive intent unless proven otherwise. But a person who secretly dislikes you does the opposite. They start with suspicion and then search for reasons to justify it. You might also notice how they retell your actions to other people. A simple decision you made might be described in a way that sounds manipulative or self-serving. Something you said in a neutral tone may be repeated with a negative interpretation attached to it. Over time, this creates a narrative where your behavior appears questionable, even when your intentions were completely reasonable. This mindset often comes from internal bias rather than actual evidence. Because they already feel resentment towards you, their brain automatically filters your actions in a way that confirms their belief. Every situation becomes proof that their negative view of you is correct, even when the situation does not truly support that conclusion. Another detail that reveals this behavior is the lack of curiosity. When someone genuinely wants to understand you, they ask questions before forming judgments. But a person who assumes the worst rarely seeks clarification. They jump straight to conclusions, often speaking about what they believe you meant rather than asking what you actually meant. Over time, this constant misinterpretation can make interactions feel frustrating or unfair. It may seem like no matter what you say or do, the person finds a way to attach a negative meaning to it because their opinion about you was already decided long before the conversation even began. Another behavior that often reveals hidden resentment is how closely they watch you while pretending they do not care. On the surface, they may act indifferent, as if your life, your progress, or your decisions mean nothing to them. They might avoid praising you, avoid showing interest in what you are doing, and sometimes even act bored when your name comes up in conversation. But if you look carefully, you begin to notice that they actually know a surprising amount about you. They remember details about things you posted, projects you worked on, or conversations you had, even though they never openly engaged with them. They may casually reference something you did weeks ago or bring up a decision you made that you never discussed with them directly. The information seems to appear out of nowhere, revealing that they have been quietly paying attention the entire time. This behavior often shows up in subtle comparisons. They may mention something you recently achieved and immediately connect it to their own situation, almost as if they have been tracking your progress. Even when they act uninterested, their awareness of your activities shows that your actions occupy more space in their mind than they want to admit. Another sign is how quickly they react to changes in your life. If you start doing something new, improving a skill, or gaining recognition, they somehow hear about it very quickly. They may not congratulate you or support you, but they are aware of the development. Their reaction might appear through a comment, a quiet remark to someone else, or a sudden shift in how they behave around you. What drives this behavior is often quiet comparison. When someone secretly resents you, they measure their own position against yours. Paying attention to your progress becomes a way for them to monitor where they stand. Even though they pretend you are irrelevant to them, your actions become a reference point they keep watching. The contradiction between their words and their attention reveals the truth. Someone who truly does not care about you rarely spends time observing you, but a person who secretly dislikes you often studies your moves more than your supporters do, because your progress constantly reminds them of a comparison they wish they could ignore.